which I am not. Okay.
Yes, I can see Dr. Dravid has joined in.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Dravid.
Hello, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Dravid, for making this possible. Because you had a clinic, I know you had a clinic this evening, but you have made yourself available. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dravid.
My pleasure, ma'am.
Has Ranjana ma'am joined? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Ranjana ma'am.
Has Ranjana joined?
Yes,
Hi.
ma'am. She has.
Good evening,
Yes.
Ranjana.
Good evening, Ranjana Di.
Suchitra, you're all set for the 30th?
Yes, we are. And,
You got the link also?
Yeah, got everything now. We are ready. Just after this session, I'll be circulating the things related.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have Earth Day today.
Yeah.
Today is the Earth Day, right?
Ma'am and everyone. Malti ma'am, this is Vidya here.
We can wait for another 2 minutes and then we can start. Okay.
Ma'am, good evening.
Evening.
Vidya here.
Okay, ma'am.
Evening.
Malti, when will we start?
See, it is 5:33. So shall we start in 2 minutes?
I think so. Let's start. Whoever joins will join.
Yeah, yeah. And it's even live also.
Yeah.
Yeah, YouTube live. So
Start the recording.
thanks, Vidya. Nice to see you.
Gayatri.
Yeah.
Yes, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thanks for sharing. Last moment I saw it, but I could join, register quickly and join.
Yeah, that is very nice.
Yes, thank you.
I suppose, if we send it early, then people forget about it. So,
Yes. Too early, people
Right.
forget.
yes, because now even the seminar which I've come to Chennai, it was on giftedness and it was a hybrid. So we had people online and it was physical also,
You are in Chennai now?
Yeah, I'm in Chennai. Yeah. So I've told Michaeli that I'm in Chennai. Yeah. Jyotika Kalra is in Pune and I'm in Chennai.
Oh,
Okay.
and even Gauri Chabria is in Pune.
Gauri Chabria also in Pune. Oh,
Ah.
acha.
They met the UWA team yesterday.
Yes. So I said I'm not there because our seminar started yesterday.
How many days seminar, Malti?
2 days. It was an international seminar. We were the knowledge partners.
Okay. It's over?
Over. We can actually start, Suchitra.
I think so.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We'll start. Gayatri, over to you. I'll start recording. Resume recording. Okay. Gayatri, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Go ahead. Okay.
Good evening. I, Gayatri Joshi from PYBA Kaveri College, extend a warm.
May I request people to mute?
Ma'am, can you mute them?
Just a moment.
Okay, I guess I'll go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yes. So, good evening. I, Gayatri Joshi from PYBA Kaveri College, extend a warm welcome to everyone present today. I request Mrs. Malti Kalmadi, ma'am, Honorable Project Convener of the Indian Federation of University Women's Associations, to welcome everyone and introduce today's session.
Respected President, Dr. Anjana Banerjee, respected resource persons for this evening, Dr. Suchitra Roy, Member UWA Pune, Secretary UWA Pune, Dr. Tejal Dravid, Consultant Physician and Intensivist, all the participants who've come here on behalf of Indian Federation of University Women's Association Program Committee members, I welcome you to the 8th session of Swayamsiddha, Empowering Women Patient. So we started off on 3rd September 21 with a program by Dr. Suchitra Roy called Poshan. It dealt with nutrition and diet and the food that one needs to have and the effect it has on one's body and how each one of us needs to be very careful of the food that we eat. And I would like to give a quote here. It is said that the one who draws on the energy of the outside is a slave. The one who draws the energy from within is a master. And this quotation speaks about the importance of being able to take care of oneself. Even Buddha has said that in order to take care of others, we need to take care of ourselves first. So remaining healthy in body definitely has its impact on the mind too. So it is very important that we understand what food we need to take ourselves healthy, both in mind and body. So I welcome you to the 8th session of Swayamsiddha. And I thank you for being here with us in our attempt to help graduate working women, in fact, all women, manage stress. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request everyone to join for the lighting of the lamp.
Shubham karoti kalyanam Arogyam dhana sampada Shatru buddhi vinashaya Deepa jyoti namostute.
It's my pleasure to invite Dr. Ranjana Banerjee, ma'am, Honorable President of the Indian Federation of University Women's Associations, to address the attendees.
Thank you, Gayatri. It is my pleasure to say a few words on this exercise that Indian Federation of University Women's Association is doing through the project convener and her committee. Ever since we started traveling in this area of empowering women, building up resilience, especially having crossed the pandemic times, each and every session centered around the nuances and the skill of keeping each women, graduate women, healthy in body and mind. As the project convener Malti Kalmadi just said, that if we have to help others, we will first have to be strong ourselves. On this line, we have had very energizing and erudite information, coming from food, nutrition, the psychological basis, yoga, each and every one of these lectures the resilience and the skill of keeping ourselves afloat amidst different kinds of situations. A healthy body and a healthy mind is only capable of confronting different kinds of situations. And that was our mission, that the project that we will undertake and the following exercises that will take place after the project has been floated must be able to empower women in every possible way so that they find ground under their feet. When we call ourselves empowered, we must be able to take decisions and do the best for us. And when we decide to do the best for us, cumulatively, we are helping our society and our sisters. So I congratulate Malti Kalmadi, the project convener, and her team for organizing such talks, such discussions, which are really extremely beneficial as our knowledge base and for us to continue a healthy life. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Nutrition plays a huge role in the prevention of many diseases. It's very essential to have a nutritious diet to maintain a healthy life. But the information available to us is not always authentic. Today, we have two distinguished resource persons to guide us through the facts and myths about nutrition and diseases. Our first resource person is no stranger to this topic. Dr. Suchitra Roy is a nutrition researcher who has done her doctoral work in the interdisciplinary area covering biochemistry and nutrition, where she worked specifically on maternal nutrition. Along with being the secretary of UWA Pune and IFUWA Project's core committee member, she has been associated with several reputed institutions. She is also the proud recipient of the Young Scientist Award by the Nutrition Society of India in 2012. Another resource person here with us today is Dr. Tejal Dravid, an MD in internal medicine and an intensivist with 11 years of experience in the care and treatment of patients. She has trained junior doctors employed in emergency rooms and ICUs. She is also associated with many Indian as well as foreign institutions. I am honored to welcome Dr. Suchitra Roy and Dr. Tejal Dravid, and I request them to proceed with the session.
Hello.
Yes, Suchitra ma'am, please. I have
Thank you
stopped
so
sharing.
much. Thank you so much, Gayatri, for those beautiful words. Good evening, one and all. First of all, let me thank IFUWA for giving us an opportunity to deliver this talk in the Swayamsiddha series. I thank the President IFUWA, Dr. Ranjana Banerjee, Convener IFUWA Project Committee, Mrs. Malti Kalmadiji, and the entire team of Kaveri College and SkillSlate Foundation for all their efforts in organizing this seminar, this webinar. Happy to be on this online platform along with Dr. Tejal Dravid to interact with you all on this interesting topic, which is of utmost importance in today's scenario, with an entire spectrum of dietary choices before us. My talks are based on my work and the interpretation of work done by other researchers, also including allied areas. As a nutrition researcher, I'll try to keep it simple and avoid making it a science lecture. My co-speaker, Dr. Dravid, brings in her experiences as a clinician dealing with lifestyle challenges on an everyday basis. So we now, without wasting any more time, we will go to the presentation. So our topic, as you all know, nutrition and disease, facts and myths. So today we are going to discuss on this topic. Since we are talking in the pandemic era, and when we talk about the pandemic, there are several factors we have to deal. And so we will have to talk about the physical inactivity, the stress, physical and mental both, the food availability, the packaged food, all implications for maternal and as such malnutrition for everybody. And thereby the emergence of lifestyle disorders about which we are going to talk in today's webinar. So as you all, many of you must be related to the area of nutrition, and those who do not belong to this particular forte, for them it is important to understand that as we speak of other factors like the genetic factors, environmental factors, of all those, poor health and poor diet have got the most proportional meaning in that sense. And this has been proven through research across the globe. So when we see during the pandemic, we have come across these terminologies more or less every day. Every day we come across this mortality, morbidity, comorbidity, nutrition. These factors have been coming to us through some or the other means. And we have come to know about morbidity. What is morbidity? What is comorbidity? And what is their linkage? And somehow we have got the message about the comorbidity and the mortality ratio, and which has been very, very prevalent during the pandemic. Now, if we look at the statistics, we will see that as per the UNICEF data, in its report of 2017, more than 11 people killed across the globe due to poor diet, which is a striking, maybe for some, it might be a very new thing to know that it is because of only poor diet, so many people were killed. And these are consequences we are talking of, right? Poor diet is considered as one of the leading factors in the global burden of diseases. And this is as per the Fed to Fail report, again by UNICEF in its 2021's report, which has been published very recently. The pandemic deaths, diet has been a very, very important factor, played a very important factor. I think I will pass on this communication further to Dr. Dravid, who shall share her experiences further with the slides. Over to Dr. Dravid.
Thank you, Suchitra ji. I think any talk today about health, nutrition, lifestyle diseases would be incomplete unless we begin with talking about COVID. There are certain events in the lifetime of a generation that are so epochal that they completely change the way people perceive their life and look at their lives. And I believe that in our particular, of all the people who are alive on the earth today, one such epoch-making event was, of course, the pandemic, which has begun in 2020 and seems to still continue with no signs of receding. So if you look at the slide that I have put up is data that has been published. This is a national registry of COVID deaths. Of course, it's not a comprehensive registry because data reporting is incomplete in this state. But just to give you a broad view, next slide, please. This shows a profile of patients who got admitted with severe COVID into hospitals and categorizes them according to age, gender, and comorbidities. To no one's surprise, it was seen that the mortality, this speaks about around 18,000 odd patients, but to no one's surprise, the mortality and morbidity was highest among patients who had diabetes, who had hypertension, who were morbidly obese, who had cardiac problems, and those who had some kind of respiratory issue like tuberculosis, asthma, or chronic pulmonary disease. That it's not as if that we never knew that how nutrition is closely related to development of disease. Only COVID brought it out more glaringly. you might be wondering how this kind of relates to the nutrition. So all these diseases, diabetes, blood pressure, and tuberculosis have their link somewhere in nutrition. Most of these patients, they died because of a poor immune response or a hyperimmune response to the COVID. Those who survived could manage to mount a good immune response to ward off the virus. But those who died because either the immunity was not good enough to mount a response and the virus kind of kept on wreaking havoc in their bodies, or secondly, the immune response was inappropriate to the amount of immune stimulation. So all in all, it boiled down to finally the immunity. And where does one derive this immunity from? One derives the immunity from nutrition. All the defense mechanisms, defense cells of the body, as we call them, the CD4s and the immunoglobulin making cells, are have their products as proteins, and this of course comes from good nutrition. It comes from a balanced diet. So it became more startlingly clear that the roots of this pandemic, the high mortality seen in diabetics, obese patients, patients of Asian descent who are particularly prone to develop obesity and diabetes, has their roots somewhere in the way we eat. So the COVID has kind of forced us to look back at our lives and wonder what we are doing really wrong. Are we eating wrong? Are our lifestyle habits very filthy and they kind of make you prone to develop all these kind of diseases? Are we resting enough? Have we paid any attention to our health unless a complaint comes up? So more or less, what we have been doing is sick care, that you develop some sickness, then you go to the doctor, then you wonder what's wrong with you. So this has to change. What we have to look at is not sick care, but health care. That is, when you are healthy itself, you should be questioning whether there is something wrong with you. Many of these patients who got admitted for a possible COVID in the hospital were screened for the first time for diabetes, blood pressure. These were not the elderly usual patients that visit doctors. These were young working class patients between 30 and 60. So we were surprised to find many of them were completely unaware that they have uncontrolled hypertension or uncontrolled diabetes for a long time, and COVID had brought it to the fore. Next slide, please. Suchitra ji, next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are. I think there's something with the...
there is some problem from my end, it seems. Just hold on. If I cannot, then I will ask Suchitra to share the slides. Just 1 minute you give me. If it doesn't happen, then Suchitra, you have the slides.
Yes. Okay.
It's not happening, I'm sorry. No, there is some problem. It's not happening. No.
Ma'am, please stop sharing.
Yes.
Suchitra, ma'am.
Yes.
Is the slide visible?
The screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am. Shilpa, ma'am.
Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Next.
So the 4 main types of non-communicable diseases one should be focusing on in pre-COVID era and today, more importantly, in the post-COVID era, should be cardiovascular diseases. That is the terms that you are familiar with. The myocardial infarcts, which are heart attacks in common parlance, heart failures. Second comes chronic respiratory diseases like asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, tuberculosis, all types of cancers. And last but not the least, and perhaps the thing which we'll be focusing more on in the later slides, type 2 diabetes. Next slide, please. So, given the kind of data that has emerged from the pandemic, there is a relook into how we should be dealing with these non-communicable diseases. So, WHO, World Health Organization, has set certain targets to be achieved for 2025 as regards the non-communicable diseases. Importantly, if you look at all these things, one is reduction in uh, all kinds of addictions. So harmful use of alcohol down by 10%, tobacco use down by 30%. It also equates excess consumption of salt as an addiction and suggests reducing it down to 30%. Again, physical inactivity reduction by 10%. This seems to be a modest goal, given that we find so much of our population which is leading a very sedentary lifestyle. Another focus of emphasis is to prevent further numbers of diabetes and obesity from increasing, which seems tall order given our lifestyle today. Raised blood pressure reduction by almost 25%, which seems easily doable by certain community-based measures. Drug therapy and counseling 50% coverage, and essential non-communicable disease medicines and technologies 80% coverage. These are, of course, very utopian and idealistic goals, but it seems to be at least a good step in the first step in that direction. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned in the earlier slides, what has come to the fore after the COVID particularly has been diabetes as a comorbidity for death. Okay. India is the diabetic capital of the world. We have the largest number of diabetic patients in the world. Every 8th person you know who's an adult is a diabetic, or he is a diabetic who doesn't know he's a diabetic in India. Diabetes is we call it in our terminology a iceberg disease. It's not about just your fasting sugar, your postprandial sugar and HbA1c really. Till the time diabetes is detected in this phase of what we call as impaired glucose tolerance, a person who has some kind of disturbance with their glucose metabolism is and yet is not aware that he has some kind of issue with his diabetes. Even that time diabetes starts playing with your blood vessels. So all the small and large blood vessels of the body undergo something that is called as accelerated atherosclerosis. Simply speaking, it is just deposition of bad kind of cholesterol or lipid in your blood vessels, narrowing them to a very minor caliber. This has its own secondary effects, which is development of hypertension at a very early age, development of obesity, development of renal failure. In fact, around 20% of all Indian patients present for the first time with renal failure, and then they know that they have diabetes, when diabetes really has caused the renal failure in first place. Another very nagging and very irritating to the patient symptom is development of these pins and needles or burning sensation in the feet, which we refer to as neuropathy. And it is 20% of the patients will present with neuropathy for the first time, and that is when it's detected that they have diabetes. So at that point of time, even if though you know advise diet, you put them on drugs, there is a change in lifestyle, the damage that has already been done cannot be undone. And more importantly, I think I should focus on this point that diabetes is a very important risk factor for development of sudden cardiac deaths, heart failures. Around 40% of all admissions with heart problems are in the subgroup of diabetic patients. If you have diabetes, the chance of you developing a heart problem within next 5 years is almost 50%. That's a staggering statistic. That's a huge number. And these are, as you know, sudden cardiac death is the leading cause of mortality worldwide. So somewhere this all boils down to the way we are eating, the way we are exercising, and the way we are living our lives. Next slide, please. Another interesting thing that has increasingly been the focus of intense research in nutrition and therapeutics has been the emergence of neurodegenerative diseases. Neurodegenerative diseases are diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, wherein the neurons suddenly start losing their function for no rhyme or reason. and person is rendered either off balance, as happens in Parkinson's disease, or with loss of substantial memory, as happens in Alzheimer's disease. So there seems to be a link between development of neurodegenerative disease and the type of the diet the person has consumed during his lifetime. So malnutrition, low body mass index, less consumption of antioxidants and carbs is associated with development of neurodegenerative diseases. Given this hypothesis, there is also an increasing movement to find out if the solution for slowing down progression of these diseases lies somewhere in modification of diet. So the broad things that have been suggested are to be physically active, eat a diet that is rich in veggies and fruits, keep yourself mentally active, avoid living in silos, and interact as much as you can with your society, look after your heart. And there is an increasing move now to include antioxidants as a part of our diet, or there is a research going on in using ketogenic diet to slow down progression of Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. So there is much that we don't know about how nutrition affects the brain, and as research progresses, with a certain more perspectives are sure to emerge. Next slide, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Dravid. That was a great insight on diabetes and the other LCDs. Now coming to the dietary patterns and research outcomes, what we have today. If we look at the research work which has happened in the past, there are studies which have seen the impact of mono nutrient in diet and their effect over a period of time. So if you look at this particular study, which happened in 1970s, so this is a study on the highland population of Tukisenta, New Guinea, that is in the island population where the highland and lowland populations were studied. This is in particular the highland population under purview, where it was seen that to start with, when the studies were conducted, investigators found them to be fit when they were just on a mononutrient diet. This is because these are the tribes which are dwelling on a particular food availability, because they are staying in a particular place where only that particular kind of food is available, such as the tubers. So the roots and tubers being their only source of diet, but they were found to be fit, lean and muscular with no signs of protein deficiency. Their energy dense diet mainly composed of carbohydrates only. They didn't have much of proteins or any other things in any ways, but their physical activities and all were quite appreciative. Whereas when the same longitudinal studies were continued on the same individuals over a period of time, longitudinal studies have shown that long-term consumption of mononutrient proves detrimental towards well-being of people. So the same set of people who were very healthy in the beginning of the study, when similar studies were conducted in 1990s on the population living then, with the same kind of persons who were registered in the beginning of the research work, it was found that they had developed so many disorderly patterns, such as cardiovascular diseases and certain other clinical manifestations, to show that definitely there is a link between mononutrient diet and their implications. Next, please. So what is fad diet? Now we are talking about fad diets. Fad is nothing, it is basically a trend. So if we see as a generation, we are used to quick results. Everything from groceries to electronics can be bought with a click. Unintentionally or not, we have begun to channel that into how our bodies respond to an external stimulus, such as food and exercise. We expect results within a short span of time and will go to great lengths to ensure that it happened and that it happens. Ever completely cut off a food group or had just juices for a week to shed some weight? So this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what we called as a fad diet. It's nothing but a trend that claims to guarantee rapid weight loss and have an upper hand over our perfectly normal balanced diet. Most of the claims around fad diets might seem appealing. Guaranteed weight loss in a week helps in removing harmful toxins from our body. Carbohydrates are stored as fat. Switch to fat as your primary source of energy. Sound similar? Although these claims might seem appealing, the diet by itself is extremely restrictive. Every single nutrient has a role to play in our body, and nothing in isolation is inherently bad. Any diet that you choose to follow is completely based on individual preference. But is it sustainable? So you have seen here in this particular slide, there are so many diets which have been shown: the ketogenic, the paleo, the detox, the GM. Next slide, please. If you look at the trend, what we follow today, in the city of Pune or anywhere else in the country, there are these many trends which are today being followed rampantly. Intermittent fasting being one of them, very much in practice, and many people are getting some good results. They get very good results within a very short span of time, and so they are very much impressed with that. Mononutrient based, like only proteins they will have, or elimination of nutrients from the diet, like total restriction of carbs from the diet, or total elimination of fats from the diet. But the question is it sustainable? Is it personalized to help you achieve your goals? It is imperative that everyone is informed of the pros and cons of these diets and make an informed choice. For this reason, we have a list of whatever research I could compile for this particular show. We will just have a look at them. Next slide, please. So you can see here there is a list of recent studies. Recent means these are not old studies. These are 2000 onwards. Some of them are of the very recent studies outcomes which have been published, even 2022 February. So if you look at these studies, the fat diets and obesity being one of the studies which has been studied on a huge cohort, and the outcomes, their conclusions, if you see, they have short-term results. Yes, they have given some results, but the compliance rates are very poor over the longer run. So the decision to go on any diet should be made with a health professional who can monitor the patient closely. So this is what has been understood from this particular study, which has been done on a huge cohort. If you look at the intermittent fasting, the potential bridge of obesity and diabetes to health is a very, very recent study. And again, here also, if you look at the results, as an emerging, diverse, and relatively premature behavior intervention, as intermittent fasting is, there are still limited studies considering patients with obesity and type 2 diabetes mellitus. It is also a controversial intervention for the treatment of metabolic disease and cancer. So the risks and challenges appear consequently. So the point here is that you will get short-term results definitely, but long-term is still to be seen. Further, you can see another study here, the long-term effects of a very low-carb weight loss diet compared with an isocaloric, low-fat diet after a year. So here the low-carb diet offers clinical benefits to obese persons with insulin resistance. However, the increase in the LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, with that particular diet suggests that this measure should be monitored. Again, this has to be a monitored diet. Next, please. Next slide, please. I think we just missed one slide in between. Yeah, the second one. Here also you can see a similar trend has been established. Here, low carb compared with low fat diet in severe obesity has also shown similar results, that long-term restriction needs further medical intervention. If we are restricting a particular nutrient in the diet for a particular period of time, the furtherance to it needs to be monitored well. Even a high protein diet, which is considered to be a very, very good diet, high protein, low carb versus high protein, moderate carb weight loss diet on antioxidant status. has shown that improvements in the metabolic health associated with the weight loss were similar between both the groups. However, the micronutrient part, the antioxidant supplementation might be required because it might get depleted over a period of time due to such kind of dietary interventions. A very huge cohort study on a population in low magnesium areas was conducted in the US very recently. It's a 2022's report, which suggests that again, there is a need to monitor whenever we are going for a long-term diet in such cases, wherever we are trying to make some alterations in the dietary habits of people. There needs to be a stringent monitoring by experts, by clinicians. Next, please. So if we look at the fad diets, some general tendencies, if you look at the ages, what they tend to, if you look at children and adolescents, there is a tendency to have high trans fat, high glycemic index food, and simple sugars in the form of the carbohydrates in the form of simple sugars. Pizza, burgers, aerated drinks, all these things are very much preferred. But suddenly, as we go to a little bit older children who are in their adolescence or even elder, they suddenly start just skipping their meals. They don't want to eat anything. Maybe there is a peer pressure of zero size, or we do not know what is that pressure which is building in them. And suddenly they skip eating. So there are some interpretations for these in the form of some diseases also, which Dr. Dravid will be telling us. If we look at the adults, 40 plus of their ages, there is a tendency to go for crash diets with low or no fats. There is a preference of liquid diets. There is a preference of elimination diets. Next, please. Next, please. So, as we know that the consequences of this kind of diets, please continue pressing. Yeah, so we can see that this kind of diets gradually lead to the emergence of lifestyle diseases. Over to Dr. Dravid.
Yeah, as Suchitra ji, you quite rightly said that we have this very three distinct kinds of people coming to us with different kind of nutritional issues really. Since I'm a physician, I deal with anybody who's about 12 years of age. So I have typically these three groups, 12 to 15, then I have teenagers coming between 15 to 20, 19, 20 age group, and then I have anybody elder than that also. So early in my practice, I never used to face the kind of questions that I face nowadays. Next slide, please. So these typically, one slide back, one slide behind. Yeah, wait on this slide for a few minutes. So I have this age group who comes to me between 12 and 15. Their parents are my patients, and then they bring their children along. And the health problems that are they talk about are very peculiar. That is, these children are have been on a junk food kind of diet. The only square meal that they eat in a day is the food that probably they eat at school, and afterwards they are mostly eating junk food. And because of their tendency, they have this they are entering their teens and they have this tendency to argue with parents. The mother will typically say she eats only Maggie, or she needs a burger a day, or that kind of thing. And we are getting very early onset of obesity at the age of 11 or 12 years. Their BMI is more than their expected BMI. They're grossly overweight. This leads to, especially in women, in the girls, this leads to early onset of puberty, precocious puberty, and they face issues with their menstruation and fertility later on in their life. The seeds of diabetes later on in life are sown in early obesity. That is, children who tend to be obese in their early childhood up to the late teens are more likely to develop diabetes, which is backed by solid data. Another emerging problem is early hypothyroidism in these children. We find increasingly my hypothyroid patients are becoming younger and younger, and I have patients as young as 12 who are taking thyroid replacement medication. some of it is related to diet and some of it is related to the sedentary lifestyle, especially post-COVID. The mandatory lockdown meant complete restriction of physical activity of these children, which has led to these problems emerging in these patients. Another issue is development of nutritional anemia in a relatively well, the kind of societal group that is not really deprived of nutrition, but the choice of the food they have leads to development of nutritional anemia, iron deficiency anemia, B12 deficiency anemia, and the parents want me to supplement it instead of supplementing it through food. This is the peculiar problem of age group between 12 to 15. Then there is another set of these young girls between 15 to 24 who refuse to eat anything. They simply refuse to eat anything, with mothers struggling to feed them one roti a day, or some of them who are just stuck on one egg a day, or some the young men who are obsessed with their gyms and want to eat only proteins. They refuse to have a single carb, or they refuse to have anything that is fibrous. So this is another set of patients who come with completely different health problems, again anemias, and feeling of chronically being fatigued at the age of 20 or say 21 is an increasingly more reported complaint in the clinic. Another group that I frequently encounter is those working population between ages 35 to 55, who suddenly after encountering a health problem, they become more aware of taking care of their health and suddenly opt for something completely dramatic, that they will have a no carb diet, or they will have a only protein diet. The food fats that you were referring to, Suchitra ji, in your earlier slides, are probably more applicable to this subgroup, and unaware of what are the this is completely unguided diet choices that they make. They have not consulted a nutritionist, they have not consulted their clinician, and they are dealing with this on their own, in their own way. Of course, there is WhatsApp University, there is YouTube to guide them. So this leads to emergence of anemia, emergence of hypertension, emergence of diabetes in this subgroup of patients. The choices might also lead to an increased prevalence of GI cancers, which we were seeing in very elderly patients, are now started appearing in their early 40s. Next slide, please. So why should one avoid a fat diet? Glucose or the carbs are the metabolic currency of the body. All your ATP comes from your glucose. Glucose is required for normal functioning of each and every individual cell of your body. So depriving your body of glucose will, yes, help you in losing weight initially, but in the long term, what it leads is, one, increased fatigue, because there is simply no carbs to generate any energy. Second, there is because you're focusing on one particular nutrient in your diet, it leads to deficiency of a whole lot of other nutrients, like the commonly known ones are iron, B12, and then we have this micronutrient deficiency, selenium, magnesium, molybdenum, zinc coming in, which lead to increased fatigability. So I have one, whenever patients come to, earlier used to come to me with saying that I'm feeling tired all the time, I'm feeling weak, I tend to doze off at 7. My first questions were whether you have diabetes, whether you have blood pressure, whether you have thyroid. Now I have added one more question: are you on any kind of fat diet? So that is the amount of patients we are getting complaining of fatigue due to the wrong dietary choices they make. As I said, your body is not programmed to be on an all protein diet. Protein is slightly more, metabolizing a protein is slightly more tedious for the body than metabolizing the glucose, and it's, your GI tract is not supposed to handle a load of only the protein. So this has led to constipation disease, which was commonly associated with people who are above their 60s or in their 70s, have now started emerging in 20s and 30s. And when typically I ask, are you going to any gym? Have you taken any supplement? Are you taking just proteins? And most often the answer is yes. Inadequate intake of water, negligence on their part about taking water, taking all kinds of supplements to reduce weight, including diuretics, Consumption of excessive non-vegetarian food or processed food, which in turn uses uric acid as generates uric acid, has led to increased emergence of kidney stones in a very young population, not even geographically located in the area where people are typically more prone to develop kidney stones. I could go on and on talking about the cardiovascular risk factors associated with fat diets, but it's enough to say that glucose is the currency of the heart. When you start switching to a diet which contains only proteins or only fats, you promote something that is called ketogenesis, that is development of ketone bodies or generation of ketone bodies in the blood, which are not supposed to be there, and the heart is not supposed to be functioning in such a neurohumoral milieu. That's why it functions at it is expending more energy with each heartbeat, which ultimately leads to generation of atherosclerosis, then fatigability, increased heart failure incidence in very young population. Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Broad dietary recommendations. These common sense gout is to avoid seafood, caffeine, leafy veggies like spinach, broccoli, dill, using alcohol, and when you are having an acute attack of gout, to avoid bakery products. Hypertension, again, there is a whole lot of controversy about the kind of diet that one needs to follow in hypertension, but broadly speaking, I think the best approach would be to follow a DASH diet, which says that you need low salt diet, that is less than 1500 milligrams of sodium per day, that is total sodium consumption over 24 hours should be less than 1500 milligram. This is around 1 tablespoon in a day. More fruits, more veggies, and more low fat dairy products. Kidney disease, a person suffering from kidney disease should ideally be under the watch of a nutritionist. He should not decide, he or her should not decide his or her own diet. So there, at very advanced stage of renal failure, there is a restriction on the amount of fluid you can consume. There is a restriction on the amount of salt you can consume. And most of these patients are stopped from eating any kinds of fruits and coconut water, which will build up potassium as the kidney function deteriorates. The whole diet tamasha is centered around this one disease called as diabetes, and we can devote an entire session really to what kind of diet works best in diabetes. You have the Divekar diet, you have the Dikshit diet, and there are so many more. But I don't want to go into the controversies of the benefits and risks of each of them. But broad guidelines say that you should use non-starchy veggies, that is avoiding your potatoes and sweet potatoes. Choosing citrus fruits or fruits which have neutral taste like apple, santra, mosamba. Protein except red meat you can have. Avoid starchy, high-fat processed food, the McDonald's, the Pizza Hut kind of diet should of course be avoided, and replacing saturated fat with unsaturated fat. That's why the trend of using broccoli and green cabbage and the violet cabbage kind of stuff. Next slide, please. Yeah, over to you, Suchitra. Suchitra ji, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Dravid. So that brings us to that stage where we can actually say that we cannot just remove a particular nutrient from the diet and say that we are going for a crash diet, or we are going for our health regime, gym programming, because these things do not work over a longer period of time. So if we look at the COVID situation or otherwise also, the immunity building food, that is the vitamins and minerals, the micronutrients, which actually provide us the antioxidants, are essential for our body. And any immunity builder just overnight will never work. This is also amply proven during the pandemic. So a balanced diet is the key. Next, please. So as we can see that the trend today is that we have started avoiding the energy giving, the carbohydrates and the fats. Now it is a wise decision to actually moderate the carbohydrate intake, as very rightly said by Dr. Dravid. that we can moderate the quantity, and as per our diseases and the kind of restrictions we have been allowed, we should go for only those restrictions as per the doctor's advice, and we should not get into the kind of elimination diets Dr. Dravid said. I don't want to get into any controversy by saying about any particular diet, because those are having their long-term consequences, and over a period of maybe a year or so, people are finding it difficult to continue with those diets. So it is the bottom line is to go with a balanced diet and not go for such crash diets, elimination diets. Next, please. So dietary diversification is the key, because there is monotony if you go for, please next, the earlier slide. So there is monotony if we go with a particular food every day, and it doesn't help us because we are not getting the sufficient nutrients which are required for the body, adequate functioning of the body. So this is a rough meal plan for day-to-day, on a day-to-day basis, which you can make some alterations, some modifications. Like you start your day with an energy-dense diet. You have carbohydrates because they are important. Carbohydrates now, as per the age, as per the requirement, you can moderate the quantity and even the presentation. Because for small children, the same food may not be very, very liked by them. So we have to make some alterations in the presentation, in the quantity, and maybe a few additives which can help them have that particular food, because they are now more aligned towards having the westernized diet, because it looks very nice, it feels very good, the satiety level is very high in those kind of food items. So a little bit of alterations, like when you make poha, you can just make the presentation much more different than how it looks by adding a few things, like you add a few cashews, because generally we do not do that, but if we want them to have the nuts along with that, we can make such alterations which can make the food look lucrative, and they may like to have that food. So these are a few food groups which have been shown. Like the 5 food groups, as we all know, the carbohydrates, fats, the minerals, vitamins, and the proteins. These are the 5 groups which we should not miss out. And these 5 food groups, we can just see across the day how we can have them. We do not miss out on them. The salad, dal, legume, a bowl of vegetable, green leafy vegetables, tubers, then chapati, bhakri, whatever, because this is, food is also having its own ethnicity, because a person who is eating in the southern part of India may not like the particular food which is served in the north. So it has got its own ethnicity. So depending upon the ethnicity, depending upon the economic factors and social factors, food has a lot of differences across the country, and we do understand that. So this is a rough meal plan which can be followed across the week to actually suffice the body nutrients which are required for the healthy functioning of the body. Next, please. So we can actually say that we have a few lessons learned during the pandemic, and as such, with this kind of understanding, when today we stand with these many choices. So healthcare, not sick care. These are a few takeaways, I would say, for this particular talk. A few takeaways can be taken that healthcare, not sick care, we are looking for. Then social media is a double-edged sword. Don't go by the WhatsApp university. There are a number of things which are circulating in terms of nutrition and diet. You can see a whole aura of things which have come up during the pandemic. You have this and your immunity gets 4 times. It doesn't work. Immunity or per se nutrition is not a spur of moment. It is a process. So understanding our food habits will improve our lives and lifestyle. Basically, diets evolve over time, being influenced by many social and economic factors that interact in a complex manner. These factors influence to shape individual dietary patterns. These include income, food prices, which will affect the availability and affordability of healthy food, individual preferences and beliefs, cultural traditions, and geographical and environmental aspects, including climate change. Therefore, promoting a healthy food environment, including food systems that promote a diversified, balanced, and healthy diet, requires the involvement of multiple sectors and stakeholders, including government, public, and private sectors. And all of us as individuals, we all are equally responsible for each and every household, isn't it? Next, please. With this, we would like to assimilate this talk for today. Myself and Dr. Dravid would like to thank all of you for your patient hearing.
Shall I stop sharing, ma'am?
Suchitra, can I just ask something?
Yes, please.
Suchitra, many of the diseases today that we are having, as you said, for lifestyle mistakes that we are making,
Yes.
as well as some are hereditary.
Right. Yes.
But the worst thing is that children of today, either sex, are getting affected with something called juvenile diabetes.
Yes.
So why is that taking place at such a young age? Because till then they do not get used to fast foods or any other kind.
I think Dr. Dravid can give us a better overview on this, but still I would like to say that we cannot deny the hereditary factors. Like if you look at, there are various maternal pregnancy complications, and we have a very huge correlation, because during my studies on the maternal nutrition and the impact on the children who are born, I have seen that when mothers are affected due to poor nutrition, not only poor nutrition, there are various factors. Poor nutrition, it can be the influence of tobacco, alcohol,
Yes.
or the environmental factors. So there is a maternal programming which happens inside the body only. The child which is unborn gets programming which is done before even the birth has taken place. And this is called as developmental origin of health and diseases. This is called as Dohart concept. So my work was actually based on Dohart concept. Professor David Barker is the father of this particular concept, where a longitudinal study was done on a cohort, huge cohort in London, in the city of London, in various institutes, and it was found that there is a huge correlation between the maternal, so many factors actually. I can take a full session on that. So I can tell you just in brief that the maternal nutrition plays a very wide role. The maternal genetics also plays a huge role. Then maternal environment plays a very huge role. Whether she is in an abusive environment is also one of the factors. Whether she is under some kind of alcohol, she is herself taking alcohol, or the partner is consuming alcohol or tobacco. These all factors are getting assimilated, and the outcome is the poor programming. And we have seen that children born to such mothers, these mothers also exhibit some of the you can say disorderliness during their pregnancy in the form of eclampsia or preeclampsia. You must have heard of that certain pregnant ladies, they suddenly develop some kind of swelling in the body. There is swelling in the body is one thing, then they develop hypertension and they develop diabetes also. And this is pregnancy-induced diabetes. This is, they did not have diabetes beforehand. So when a lady during their pregnancy gets diabetes after 20 weeks of their pregnancy, that is termed as preeclampsia. So this is another disorder during pregnancy, and such mothers, even the premature babies may have such problems, what you are discussing right now, or the preeclamptic mothers or eclamptic mothers for that per se, may also have an impact like that. So I think this is very, very important, the maternal programming.
Correct.
Right.
So as I understand from you, it is the maternal health which is should be taken care of
utmost importance
to avoid major diseases.
Yes, and not only that, Ranjana Di, actually the programming starts quite early. That is why it is said that young girls during the age of their puberty also, because we in our country, we have got this gender bias, not only in our country, it is the societal, component. Yeah. So because of that, the girl is not fed properly. If there is an economic disparity, the boy will be given a cup, not that both will be given half of cup if they can afford a cup, right? Yeah. So such are the things, and the decision making is not in the hands of the mother. So she can't give even if she feels, she cannot give it to the girl child, right? Because she herself is deprived of firsthand, and then it goes to the child as well. So these are social issues, of course, but they are leading to these issues, which are like cribbing issues. And we are actually, no way, we say we are empowered, but we are not. We have to go a long way. We have to walk a long, long way to reach there. But this awareness is important, I believe. This awareness is important so that we can bring it down to maybe there can be percolation. What do you say, Dr. Dravid?
I quite agree with you. The roots of your question was right. We are increasingly seeing juvenile diabetics, but as Suchitra ji correctly said, the roots are in maternal malnutrition. So if you neglect the nutrition of the girl child in her formative years, it will reflect in the offspring she has. So it's not as simple as it seems. It's linked, to one generation behind you, your own health also.
I can actually share a very striking, result which I found in my own study. So these mothers who were subjected to either nutritional deficit or some kind of alcohol abuse or some kind of environmental deficit, when they gave birth to their children, either the children were low birth weight or they had some kind of deficiency in the form of their head circumference, because that is also considered as one of the criteria important for the growth and development perspective. But it was found after 6 months of age, the children born to these mothers, out of the, if you consider the male child and the female child, the male child was more prone towards diseases. And it might be the natural selection. That's what we could figure out, because this was a striking difference. While we have all preference for the boy, we have all preference for the diet and everything. After 6 months, when these two, both the genders were studied, it was found that the girl child was much more resilient. So either it is the estrogen which was working, or it is the natural selection that boys, the male child was not that apt to handle any situation, but the female child was, even at that small age. So this was a striking, I just wanted to share. This was one of the results.
Suchitra, there is a question in the chat box. Okay. Few questions have come in. One of them is, ma'am, please tell us about the quantity of water, the glasses of water to be had, how much to drink, because I think there has been different people telling us how much water the body needs. So can you please throw some light in this field?
Yeah. See, now as per the recommendations, see this water thing is also very important, how you should keep hydrated. Now, as per the recommendations of the Nutrition Society of India, which has come recently, they say 50 ml of water per kg of body is the kind of recommendation. 50 ml per kg of body is the recommended amount. It is actually 27 to 52. But if you are a middle-aged person, it is recommended that you have at least 50 ml of water. And more in the summers when the chances of getting dehydrated is very high. And in case of elderly people, it is suggested that you take at least 30 to 33 ml of water per kg of your body weight. This is a recommended amount which has been given.
Thank you so much. And there is another question about, is there any food and lifestyle to improve for skin tone whitening? So,
no, there is no such thing. There are so many, there are so many such ads and all you will see. You eat kesar, badam during your pregnancy, the child born will be fair complexion. But there is no scientific, relevance attached to it. There is nothing scientific.
So thank you very much.
Yeah,
in fact, the meal plan which you gave, I think throws a lot of light. And of course, there was, I think one of the participants has said that we need to have a proper curriculum for food and nutrition in schools so that, as adults, we understand the importance, because as you know, according to the Panchakosha module also, first is the first kosha is so important. Annamaya kosha.
Annamaya kosha, correct. Yes.
Annamaya
and a school health report card.
Yes, it is properly sort of taken care of. You will not go to the other parts like, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha, and finally Anandamaya kosha. Right. So taking care of the body by managing the food intake, a proper diet and nutrition care has to be taken. So I think you have really given us a beautiful description of what can happen and what are the different ailments if you don't take care of your body. You have described to us very well. And how one should avoid fad diets, because today, if you see, especially with adolescents and young adults, everybody talks about, oh, I'm dieting and I'm doing this diet, X diet, Y diet. I mean, that has become the craze, of the generation. But you have alerted, and I'm sure that if we can carry this message to our youngsters, I'm sure we can have a very healthy society. And on behalf of Indian Federation of University Women's Association, I wish to thank first and foremost the resource persons, Dr. Suchitra Roy and Dr. Tejal Dravid. And Dr. Tejal Dravid, you must become a member of UWA Pune so that we hear, so that, we can plan a proper program under IFUWA and UWA to take into schools. With your help and with Suchitra's help, we can prepare a small syllabus which we can take across schools. And definitely IFUWA is functioning in 13 states, and we can take it forward into 13 states. And I thank both of you for the deep study which you have done and you have shared with us. And special thanks to Ranjana Banerjee, the president of IFUWA, who is responsible in motivating all of us to Swayamsiddha. And I would be failing in my duty if I do not express my thanks to the committee members of the projects who have helped me in designing this Swayamsiddha, along with our advisory board. And foremost, I would also like to thank Ameya Agarwal, who has a young entrepreneur who has helped us reach out to more than 86 people during this webinar. And of course, it is being cast live, so there will be very much more people. And lastly, my special thanks to the Kaveri College and the professors of the Kaveri College. First of all, very methodically and systematically. They have designed the flyers, the students have designed the flyers, and they have anchored the program. So I thank Gayatri, and I thank Professor Suchitra Mohanty and Professor Shilpa Kadilkar for having so seriously committed to Swayamsiddha, helping IFUWA reach out to many people across India, pan-India. A special thanks to each one of you present here who participated in this webinar and who have gained a lot of knowledge from the efforts of our resource persons, Dr. Suchitra Roy and Dr. Tejal Dravid. I thank you once again and wish you all a healthy life ahead of this COVID-19. We have just now, COVID-19 has sort of subsided, and we have with us tools and strategies through this nutrition meal plan that the resource persons have shared. I thank you very much, and we look forward to each of you, to your presence on May 20th, where we'll have the 9th session. And please note that 20th May 2022, we meet once again, where we discuss the financial implications, which will to handle stress. So
9th or 8th?
20th May. It is the 9th one. This was the 8th one. So it's the 9th one, Vanjana, and the 10th one will be after this. Okay? We have only 2 left. One is financial and the other is legal. So,
okay, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye. Have a nice evening, and we are all leaving very enriched.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ranjana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malti.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you
Suchitra.
so
Thank you,
much.
Tejal.
Thank you.
Gayatri.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, we are done with the session. You may please leave.
लाइव स्ट्रीमिंग करना है।
Hello, ma'am. May I leave?
Yes, session is over now.